Hi everybody, today we're going to continue on with Unit 7 and we're going to get into Module 3. Today is Monday, May 18th. We're going to get into powers of 10 and multiplying by powers of 10. So this actually relates a little bit back to Unit 3 this year with place values and decimals. So you'll start to see a little bit of a connection to that. So let's go over some direct instruction before you do some independent practice. So just as a recap, and most of you are familiar with this because of course with base 10s it's pretty easy when we're multiplying and dividing. Decimals get a little bit tricky just because you have to figure out which way the decimal will move. But let's say that we have 32 and we multiply that by 10. We know that our answer is 32. But we're going to add 1 0 to the end to get a total of 320. So you can see we have a 0 at 10, and we're going to add a 0 to our final answer. That's like a little trick or connection. Let's say we have 32 times 100, so we have 2 zeros here. So we still have 32 as our kind of base. And now because we're working in a base of 100, we have 2 zeros. So we're going to add 2 zeros to the end for an answer of 3,200. Now, let's get into exponents. So some of you have probably seen exponents before, or maybe even worked with exponents. They're the little numbers that are above the number, similar to when we write for area squared, or when we write for volume cubed. So an exponent is in black. 3 to the second power, or the exponent of 2, or 4 to the third power, or the exponent of 3. What this is telling us is that we're taking the base number of 3 and we're multiplying that 2 times. 3 times 3, which of course would give us 9. This would tell us that we are taking, of course, 4, and we are multiplying that 3 times. And of course I wrote this wrong because I thought I was using 3 again. Sorry. I do make mistakes. So it would be 4 times 4 times 4. So that would be 4 times 4 times 4, 3 times, because we have an exponent of 3. So the definition states, and you don't need to memorize this because you're going to be working with it, exponent is a number, or it could be a symbol like an A or an X or a Y, because sometimes you may have to solve for it, that indicates the power to which the base number is raised. 3 is raised to the second power. 3 is our base number, is raised to the second power. So 3 times 3. All right, let's take a look at using our bases of 10. So what would 10 times 1 be? So 10 times 1 would basically be 10 times really nothing, because I'm not multiplying it by anything. So I would get a total of 10. Now here it says 10, and I'm raising it to the second exponent. So that means it would be 10 times 10. So now I have 2 zeros. So that means my answer would be 100. 10 raised to the third exponent, or 10 to the third. So that means 10 3 times. So now I have 3 zeros. So that would give me a total of 1,000. And then of course I'm sure you can predict the last one. 10 to the fourth, or raised to the fourth, would be 10 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that would give me 10,000. So that's kind of looking at it from a base 10 perspective. And obviously we could continue on. All right, so let's take a look at when we have a decimal. So let's say I have 4.5 times 10 to the first power. So basically, that means that I have 4.5, and I'm multiplying it by 10. Now, what that means is I am going to have to move the decimal because this is a decimal problem. So my decimal is here. I want to make my number bigger because remember I'm increasing it by a base of 10. So my decimal is going to move one place to the right for a total of 45. Now let's say that I have the same problem, but now I'm going to raise it to the power of 3, or the exponent of 3. So 4.5 times 10 to the third, or raised to the third. That now means I'm taking 4.5 times 10 times 10 times 10. Well, I know that 10 times 10 times 10 is going to give me 1,000. So basically it's 4.5 times 1,000. Now 1,000, I got 1, 2, 3. I'm going to move my decimal 3 places to the right because I need to make it bigger because I'm multiplying. 1, 2, 3. All these empty spaces I add placeholders for a total of, here was my decimal before, my decimal is now here, 4,500. You can add the decimal or not, it's not going to change the value. So now let's take a look at division. Don't be concerned, we're just going to go the opposite direction. 2.7 divided by 10 raised to the first power. So because once again we're working with a decimal, now I am not going to increase the value, I'm decreasing it. So I'm going to have to move to the left. So I know that's just by 1 power of 10, or 1 base 10, sorry. So I'm going to move my decimal to the left. So my answer would be either you could have 0.27, we've talked about this, or 0.27. We know that those answers are both the same. So you'll notice that, of course, when you go in a sequence of 10 to the first, 10 to the second, 10 to the third, and you have that same base number, you'll see a pattern. So let's talk about patterns and multiplying by powers of 10 before you get to some independent practice today, which you'll be working on with the sheet that we're going to start together and some other problems. So this one you're going to see in a Google Doc. Don't worry if you can't see it that great with my lovely little camera here. It says that the post office sells 1-cent stamps. Fill out the table below to show how much it would cost to buy different quantities of 1-cent stamps. So the idea of this is to start to see the relationships and patterns between the powers of 10 when we start multiplying, and then of course when we start dividing. So if we have 1 stamp, we know that we would have 1 times, we know it's, 1 cent, so that's why we have 0.01, which would equal, of course, 0.01. We know that our fraction would be 1 times 1 over 100, or like $1, to get us to 1 over 100, and our cost would be a cent. If we had 2 stamps, then of course we would have 2 times a hundredth, and that would be 2/100. 2 times 100th in a fraction form would give us 2 over 100, and that would give us 2 cents. So now we have 10 stamps. So I'm going to do 10 times, I'm going to follow kind of the pattern, and that would give me 10 cents now. So now I'm in the 10th column. Now how would I write that as a fraction? 10 times still 10 over that 100 or that dollar, which would give me, of course, that 10 cents. So then I would continue on with my 20 stamps, still with a penny. So 20 times 0.01 would give me 2 tenths, and my fraction would be 20 times 20 over 100 to give me 20 cents. So what you're going to do is you're going to start working on some of these problems to get us started with Module 3 before we get into some more complex problems.